Hey, welcome to this week's episode of This Full Life. This week, we are going to start, actually, this month, we are going to start some different episodes that are going to have a theme for each month. So, trying something new. I want to start talking today about a journey of change. And so, in my coaching practice, I always help clients with all the changes that they want to make in their life and how to open up to those areas of changes, how we identify. So, today we are going to talk about the areas that we want to change in our life, the areas that aren't working in our life, and how to identify these areas. We all want to be the best version of ourselves and bring our gifts to the world, right? We all have that inner knowing that there is a purpose of why we're here on the planet. Some of us can identify with really serving that purpose. Others of us are doing our jobs, but have this sense that this isn't our purpose and that there is something other than what we're doing that we're supposed to be doing. So when we are ready to create a change in our life, first of all, there are several different areas in our life that we get to start recognizing. So by and large, when we're ready to make changes in our life, all of these roadblocks start popping up, like our ego takes over and says, whoa, change, not going there. And so many roadblocks can happen. Emotional roadblocks, mental roadblocks, physical roadblocks. Like we can become sick and think that it has nothing to do with the changes that we want to make in our life. But in fact, it could be our ego trying to sabotage us. It could be our subconscious trying to take out the changes that we're ready to make in our life because they might not be serving the ego. So other ways that show up in our lives when we are ready to make a change really is the universe saying, I am here to support you. Are you sure we're making this change? And so all these different roadblocks can show up. Let's talk today about finding these blocks and finding what's not working. How do I find these blocks? And what do I do about them? So, first of all, when we are ready to make changes, let's say there are specific changes. We're going to do one of two, or we're actually going to go over two. The first one being, I want to make changes and I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that, or I'm not sure what those changes are. The second one being, I know exactly the changes I want to make, but I don't know what to do. So let's tackle the first one. So I'm ready to make changes in my life. I'm ready to move forward. My life just isn't working. What do I need to do? So first of all, we get to really recognize what's not working. This is where a journal or a Google Doc or your notes app comes in handy, that you can start making notes, kind of like when you do a food diary. If you're on any kind of regimen or something that you're trying to keep track of what you're eating or trying to figure out allergies or something like that, that's exactly what this is like, is just recognizing areas in your life that aren't working. So, for example, keeping a journal on these areas, when you find something that isn't working, write it down. You don't have to have the answer to this area that's not working. Just recognize, oh, this is an area that I would really like to shift. I would really like to change it. I really want to up-level this area in my life. Then, after you've made notes, and I would say, let's go for a week. Like most of the time, I encourage people to go for at least a week. Sometimes we take more because sometimes the ebb and flow of our lives we get kind of stuck sometimes, and the changes that we want to make kind of take a back seat when we're like really ready to focus on something. Again, all of these roadblocks come in to potentially stop us. So once we have recognized these areas in our lives that aren't working, that we are ready to shift, then we get to go under a little bit deeper. Where are these areas coming from? Why aren't they working? So just ask yourself that question. Okay, so this is the area that I'm ready to change. Why am I ready to change it? And what isn't working about this area? It requires honesty. It requires us really digging down in and being willing to see the dirt, to see the dirt and clear away the dirt of what's not working in this particular area. How are we contributing to this change that's not working, this area in our life that's not working? What are we doing to perpetuate this piece in our life that's not working? What's underneath that? So now we've recognized an area that's not working, or areas. We get to change this area. We get to dig into why it's not working. How are we contributing to this piece that's not working? So that's one piece of when we're on this path of change and ready to shift something up, when we don't know what's working, or when we don't know what area we want to change. That's how we kind of start looking at the different areas of our life and taking assessment of what's not working. Example number 2. So let's say we know exactly the area of our life that's not working, but we're not sure how to shift that area or make that area change. Very similar to what we just talked about, but with this one, we already know that particular area that's not working. We can kind of hone in on it a little differently. So let's say there's an area at work that just isn't working, or a relationship that just isn't working, an area of your relationship that just isn't working. First thing you get to do is write down, why isn't this area working for me? So once you've written it down, then you get to peel back that layer of why it's not working and see how it applies to you. See how you are contributing to this area that's not working for you. So let's use an example of work. So you are overwhelmed at work. There is just so much being piled on, and you're not quite sure how to say no over here. There's more being required of you. You're kind of feeling like the stomping mat. So this area of your life isn't working for you. So you've really identified that piece. Now we get to see, how am I contributing to this area? Brilliant. How are you contributing to feeling really overwhelmed, feeling really overworked, underappreciated? How are you contributing to that piece that's not working? What piece of it can you claim for yourself? And remember, in both of these examples, both of these contexts, we are absolutely not finger pointing. It is us that wants to make the change, right? No one else in our life has asked for this particular change other than us. So maybe this is one time in your life when you get to make it all about yourself. Maybe you haven't really been able to make things all about you before without feeling guilty. I am so giving you permission to make this all about you. It is not about anyone else. you have asked for the change. You have realized and decided this area of my life isn't working anymore. I'm the one that wants to shift it. So, going through those steps, dig into why isn't this working? Oh my God, because I'm overwhelmed. I've been given way too much on my plate. I'm being taken advantage of. But I feel like if I don't do this, I won't be seen as valuable. So kind of dig into that. Now let's get into, and this can go for both examples, the first one and the second one. So again, we're just going to use this basic work example, and this might be spot on for you. So check in to see, do you feel like if this isn't going to happen, this work overload, if this doesn't happen, who else is going to do it, right? Maybe I feel sorry for this person, and so I'm going to pick up the slack. Maybe no one else can get the job done but me. Gosh, what else could be coming up of overwhelm and a sense of I am the only one that can do this? Maybe this is how you were brought up. Maybe these are examples that you saw throughout your childhood that you just have to work yourself to the bone until you're exhausted to prove your worth, right? To prove your self-worth. So that is really digging down under these layers and being available to yourself for your own honesty. So being available and making this all about you, bringing it home to you. So perhaps you have a belief somewhere that I am the only one that can do this job. No one else can do this job. Or if I don't do this job, who's going to do this job? Who's going to take care of all of this responsibility if I don't do it? So underneath that might be a core belief of this is my value. Unless I run myself into the ground, I'm really not valuable to anyone. So sit with that for a minute, right? I mean, sometimes we've never even given this a second thought of why we have the patterns that we have. Sometimes we have a core belief of being unworthy or unlovable or not good enough. And so these patterns will show up in our life through all of the ways that we have formed our life. So if we have a belief that says, I am not good enough, or I am unworthy, or this is how I get my value, then our life will support that. So if you are looking for a change in your life and you have realized it's this piece, this area of my work that isn't working, and you've dissected that and you've realized that you have come to the place of, I am overworked, maybe I'm underpaid, maybe I'm unappreciated, maybe I'm exhausted, maybe I am so overwhelmed that I can barely see out of what's going on. Why? Then you get to ask yourself, why am I willing to be in this place of overwhelm or exhaustion or doing for everyone else except for yourself? Because when you've come to this place, and again, we're just using this as an example. So if this resonates for you, bonus. And if it doesn't, see how this plays out in your life, or see what other areas of your life you can use this example to apply to. Okay, so when you find out these areas of overwork and overwhelm, let's break that one down. Why am I willing to be overworked or overwhelmed or underappreciated or underpaid? Why am I willing to do that? Oftentimes martyrdom comes in, right? Maybe that was the example that was given to us through our childhood, that you got to work yourself to the bone to be appreciated or to be valued. You have to just give and give and give until there is a depletion. That means I'm really worthy. Not. Let's bring this back to home again and remember, since we are the one that wants to change, we are not allowed to point the finger at anyone else. When we do, all we're doing is using them as a scapegoat and avoiding taking responsibility for our own actions. It's almost instinctual sometimes, unless you've really trained your brain and are really consciously aware that a trigger is just something internal. By and large, we want to point the finger at somebody else and make them our scapegoat so that we don't have to take responsibility for why our life isn't working. And I say that with kind of a chuckle because it's almost, sometimes it can be funny when we look outside of ourselves and realize, right, my life isn't working and it's no one else's fault but mine. So if you are finger pointing at why your life isn't working, turn it around. Bring it back home as to what it is that you want to change. Why is it so important that you make this change in your life? What is important to you that you want to make a change? Okay, so once you start noticing these patterns and what's not working, and you start looking at the patterns. So let's say for a week, you have kept up with these patterns of just the areas that aren't working. What is drama for you in these areas? Maybe you have a drama addiction, right? I remember the first time one of my therapists or friends, I don't remember. I remember it was a point when I was in therapy and someone said, I think you're addicted to drama. And I thought, whatever. No, I'm not. But she could see the pattern. I was the one that wanted to change, but I couldn't figure out why all this drama kept following me. Like, why all of this, the drama. Why all the drama kept following behind me, even though I was trying to make really positive changes in my life, all this stuff kept coming up behind me. And when someone said, I think you're addicted to drama, I mean, they didn't say you are. They said, I think you might be addicted to drama. That took me several days to sit with because I thought they were berserk for even suggesting that I was addicted to drama because I was this very aware person. I really was. I was full-blown addicted to drama. So when there wasn't any kind of drama in my life, I was creating it. Or when there was drama, I was hopping on that bandwagon and kept going. That's how my life was when I was a child. There was just a lot of drama going on all the time. And that's what I knew to be life. And so when you notice areas of your life like drama following you around, you might have drama addiction. And again, not laughing at you, laughing with us, laughing with all of us who have that space of, holy cow, I think I might be addicted to drama. So check that out. Most of us don't even think of that as an addiction, right? We know shopping or drinking or binge watching sometimes can be an addiction or a form of, what's the word I'm looking for? Checking out. Denial. There we go. A form of denial. Drama is also checking out, addiction, denial, not being willing to step up in the situation. So see, Maybe you are addicted to drama. Maybe it's something in there for you. Notice when you want to point the finger, when you want to start blaming other people, and see what that's about. Make notes on that. When does it seem like someone else gets your goat, right? What trips you up? What triggers you? When is it that you notice anxiety in your body, in your chest, in your belly, like tingling all throughout your body? I know you know what I'm talking about. When something comes up and your chest starts to get tight or your stomach starts to get tight and you start to feel that anxiety seeping into your body, that's a trigger. What is it about this situation? Get really present right now. What is it about this situation that's triggering you? And don't judge yourself. Don't even start to analyze it. Just start making notes as to what's going on and what you feel. No editing, just write or talk. You know, sometimes I use my voice app on my phone and I just talk because sometimes that's the mode that feels best to me in that moment. Here's another thing when you want to change and you're not quite sure of how to make that change. How do other people respond to you? Maybe that's the area that you want to notice or shift or change. Maybe other people aren't responding to you how you would like them to respond. So what's up with that? So start being aware of what's going on in that situation. How are you contributing to that? If you are not appreciating or liking how others are showing up in your world, start being aware of how you are contributing to that, right? Because our world is 100% about us. We have the ability to shift and move and change and affect our lives 100% of the time, every single second of the day. So if other people are not reacting to you in the way that you would like them to, how are we contributing? How is it that we're showing up in that moment with that person? Get really present and aware and notice. And a lot of this noticing and getting present takes us getting out of the ego because we want to put up our shield and say, but I'm not doing anything. We are. We're sending out some kind of vibe. We're sending out a vibe that is actually clashing with someone else's vibe, because even though you might be triggering someone else and their stuff is coming up, there's still something in there for you. So when you start to see these patterns and these areas in your life that you are ready to shift and change, that's a brilliant place to be. Okay, let's continue with some more of the trigger points. Arguments. What are these arguments about? If there is a person that you have frequent conflict with, or arguments with, or disagreements, and of course, we all agree to disagree, but is there a particular situation or a person that just always seems to trigger, or you just know this person we're always going to have an argument? Do you also notice on the flip side of that you will close down when you want to have a conversation with a certain person? Like, you have to have a hard conversation or a tricky conversation, or there's a tricky topic, and you notice yourself starting to shut down. What's that about? Maybe there is an element of a lack of a lack of self-worth. Maybe a piece of you doesn't feel worthy of bringing up this topic or tackling this conversation. Maybe you don't know how, right? Maybe you don't know how to start this conversation, or once you've started it, maybe you don't know where to go with it. I mean, we all have these areas and these points in our lives that we're not quite sure how to navigate, right? So notice these patterns. Do you have a pattern of arguing with a particular person, or seemingly an area of your life that is always an argument? Or do you notice yourself starting to shut down when this particular topic needs to be discussed? Here's a really good one as well. If you are someone that shuts down, and I can relate to this because this used to be a pattern of mine, when there was a tricky topic that needed to be discussed, or something that I needed to say to my partner, my husband, and I knew it was going to create an argument, oh my God, I would find everything else in the world that needed to be done, cleaning out the bottom of the fridge, underneath the fridge, making gourmet meals. I needed to do everything else but that. And I think we're, by and large, mostly aware of all the go-to pieces that we use to alleviate that piece from our life, when in fact we're just full on avoiding it. Okay, a couple more areas that I want to touch on. Is there an area in your life that you easily become defensive? Check that piece out to see what that's about. Feel into that space of defensiveness. Why is it that you are defensive? And so when you're breaking down these areas and you've written down why, so I've asked you the question, you've answered the question, break it down again. Don't just sit with that one jotted down thing that you've noticed. Go back into that. Okay, so I really become defensive on this area. Why? Well, because. And then normally your brows are going to start furrowing and you're going to want to start finger pointing. Turn it back around and breathe. Breathe into that moment of why you have become defensive, and ask yourself, all right, why am I so defensive right now? And listen to whatever arises. Tune in to yourself. Don't judge it. Don't censor it. Don't filter it. Just notice it. Write it down. Jot it down. Speak it into your app. Notice what comes up. And if nothing's coming up, just sit and listen. If nothing else, then to recognize the fact that you've realized I'm defensive. I mean, that's huge. Sometimes it takes that first step and just to sit with that before the other steps can come in. All right, judgment is the last thing for today. So as we are looking at all of these different patterns, notice where you want to become judgy. We are all judgmental. It's what we're doing with it that is what matters. You know, I mean, we've all got this monkey mind, this chatterbox that just continually goes on throughout the day. I mean, has anyone done any research on how many thoughts we have a day? I think they have, like how much chatter goes on throughout the day. And so I would venture to say half of that is probably judgment, and unless you've really trained your mind. But what we do with the judgment is what is key, whether it's self-judgment or external judgment. And so when that judgment shows up, it's almost like if you practice meditation and when the thoughts come, because they come, you just notice it. Oh, yep, there it is, and goodbye. Versus acting on that judgment, verbalizing that judgment, pointing out that judgment, because judgment is just a hidden part of ourself, right? Judgment is that unacknowledged piece, that shadow side of ourselves that we haven't been willing to look at and heal. And it might be really far buried because sometimes we say, God, there's nothing in this for me. I've been there. And I've thought there is absolutely nothing in this piece for me, so it's not about me. If it wasn't triggering me and I wasn't judging it, it wouldn't be there in the first place unless there was a trigger for me. So I encourage you, I really invite you, the next time that you notice a judgmental thought, first of all, do not let it pass your lips. Like, just notice it. If you want to analyze it, fine. Keep it inside and figure out where that piece is for you. And if you can't figure out where that piece comes from, let it go. Just let it go. I invite you to not let it out. Do not let that judgment out. And judgment can show up in so many forms. Gossip, talking about other people, wanting to make sure that other people know that you're better. Again, I can relate to all of these because it just comes up because sometimes we feel unworthy. We feel fearful. We feel unappreciated. We are scared. So whatever it is that's coming up and we want to judge other people or make fun of other people, I just really invite you to hold on to that judgment before it comes out of your mouth and see what's in it for you. It's really an unclaimed piece of ourself that we haven't shown light on. Like, we haven't given that piece of ourself love. Okay. This has been full of ways to notice the changes that we want to make in our life, all kinds of examples of areas that we can shift, that we can change, different examples of what areas in your life, how they show up for change, the roadblocks that come up for change. I invite you to leave a message. Let me know how this works for you. What areas of change in your life are ready? What areas are up for change that you are ready to shift? And let me know how you're shifting them. I would love to hear your feedback, and I would love to answer your feedback and help you along this journey. I'll see you soon. I'll see you next week. Cheers.